The afternoon recess was over, and the preliminary hearing resumed with my attorney's cross-examination of Ali Khan Ali Nathoo, my wife's lover. I understand from the interviews that you gave to the police. Well, first of all, you were very much in love with Lien and had been for the 15 years or so that you'd known her and had been in this relationship with her since 1995 began in Montreal. Was it an intimate relationship? He replied, Not from the start. We met in 1993. It became intimate roughly 2 or 3 years after that, in 1995. My attorney continued, And shortly after that, you've told us that she moved to Ottawa with her husband. He interrupted him and said, I told you that Demetrius Angelis moved first and that she followed to be with him. My attorney continued, And then shortly after that, about 18 months after she moved, you followed, you came to Ottawa. During those 18 months, you would come to Ottawa to see her until you got a job in Ottawa. This went on in varying degrees of frequency, I gather, up until her death. He confirmed, Yes, that's correct. My attorney asked, So, before she died, it appeared to you, I suppose, that things were finally going to work out for you in your love for her. In other words, she would leave her husband, and you and she would be able to have an open relationship. Is that an accurate statement? He confirmed again, Yes. My attorney continued, So, I take it you were extremely happy about that eventuality? He replied, No, extremely happy would not be the words I would characterize that moment. Going through a separation is very difficult, and I knew that. So I knew there was an ordeal ahead of us. My attorney asked, But there was a wonderful silver lining for you at the end of it, wasn't there? To which he responded, Yes, assuming that, it worked out between us. Mr. McCann asked, So you were completely shattered, I suppose, when you found out that she was dead? He testified, trying to hold back his tears. When she was killed, I was killed as well. My life literally ended that day, my heart ripped out of my chest. He couldn't hold back his tears any more and started sobbing. Judge Fournier handed him a box of tissues and comforted him with soothing words. It's been 507 days since she died, and every day has been very, very difficult, he continued, while wiping his tears with tissues. My attorney continued, Now, sir, you've told us a lot of things here today. Am I correct that the only time that you were ever face-to-face with Mr. Angelis was that time on April 5th, 2008? He answered, The Saturday, yes. My attorney asked, So, everything else you've been telling us about the relationship between Lien and her husband comes from her? That's correct, he answered. My attorney confirmed with him, So, the general pattern, if I follow your evidence correctly in terms of your relationship over the years, was that you would pick her up regularly after work and maybe have coffee or something to eat. Sometimes she would go back to your apartment with you, where I gather you would be intimate with each other. Then you would drive her home or get her on her way or drive her to the bus stop or something. He interrupted my attorney again. Most of it, yes. Sometimes, most of the time, that wasn't the case because there just wasn't enough time in the afternoon. We had coffee, we talked, we went to the market, we bought fruits, we bought vegetables, whatever she needed to do. We had time to each other at that point after work. My attorney asked, What time would she get off work? He responded, Recently, before her death, around 4:30. Before that, around 4. We would be together for an hour or two. I would drive from the west side of the city in Canada to where she worked downtown and pick her up just about 4:10, and from there we would fight traffic heading west towards her home. We did whatever she wanted to do. Most of the time she said, I don't care what we do as long as I'm with you. I'm fine. I'm okay. We would go have coffee at Second Cup or Starbucks at Bell's Corners. Sometimes we would go to Zeller's to shop. or to the supermarket to buy fruit or vegetables or bread or milk? My attorney interrupted and asked, "This all happened in your neighborhood out in the West End?" To which he replied, "Yes, but in her neighborhood as well. She lived on McEwen Avenue, corner of Richmond Road, and I was living near the corners of Merryvale Road and Baseline, which is about a 15-minute drive." My attorney continued, "So what time generally, then, would she be on her way home and after she had spent this time with you after work?" He replied, "Before the separation started, I'd say she'd be home by about 5:30. My attorney asked, "And then at what point was it that she began to complain to you that she felt her husband was alienating her from the children?" He testified, "I'd say a couple of weeks before she decided to separate from him, mid-March or something like that." My attorney pressed forward, "And her concerns were that he was the one that was dropping them off, picking them up, dealing with the teachers, dealing with the homework, that sort of thing?" He argued, "So her concern was that he had taken on these responsibilities, in a sense of isolating her from the children. But she didn't realize that until she realized that she needed to separate from him. When that happened, then she realized, in fact, he had done this in order to isolate her from the kids." My attorney asked, "I see. It wasn't a situation where simply she wasn't there to pick up the kids when the kids were to be picked up?" He counter-argued, "Most of the time, between when their daughter was born, when their son was born, she was looking after them. She was picking them up and dropping them off." My attorney asked, "Do you know what time the kids were to be picked up?" He answered, "Roughly 3:30 for their daughter at Tunney's daycare." My attorney asked, "In the first couple of months of 2008, what was your understanding as to what time the kids were to be picked up?" He replied, "At that point, she wasn't picking them up." My attorney asked, "But do you know what time the kids were to be picked up?" He answered, "No, I don't. Sometime in the afternoon." My attorney argued, "But she was spending time with you after work until 5:30 or so, sometimes going to your place and staying a little later, I take it." "No," he counter-argued defensively. "She would be home at 5:30, always. Her priority was always with the children." My attorney confirmed, "But she never went and picked them up." To which he explained, "She picked them up before, okay? Before." My attorney asked, "But not in the last while?" He explained again, "The point where he decided to pick up the kids, where he decided to isolate her from the children, she was not picking them up or dropping them off." My attorney asked, "Did it ever occur to you that maybe the reason she wasn't picking them up is because she was spending a little bit too much time with you after work?" To which he replied, "No, her priority was always the children, always the children." My attorney continued, "I think you said it was 2001 sometime that she moved out." "She didn't move out," he said as he raised his voice defensively. "I never said she moved out. She left the home for a couple of days to be with me." My attorney asked, "And as far as the situation between her and her husband at that point was that she was leaving him, do you know?" He replied, "Yes, that's correct, but she changed her mind because he begged her to come back. He begged her several times." My attorney asked him, "What about the children? Did she have the children with her when she moved out?" He answered, "She had her daughter at that time. I don't remember how old she was. She would have been a baby then. Her son wasn't even born at that point." My attorney continued, "So, did she have their daughter with her, or did she leave her with her husband?" To which he responded, "She left her with Demetrius." My attorney sought clarification. "And she went home because she felt sorry for Demetrius, you say?" "Yes," he said, "and she wanted to be with their daughter as well. I mean, she was her mom." My attorney replied, "Yes, of course. Now, on this incident, in April 4th or 5th, it's the Saturday in any event, she had got together with you after work on Friday, and is it at that point that she says, 'I'm leaving him, I'm not going back,' or something like that?" He replied, She had verbalized that to me earlier. She was leaving her husband to come and stay with me, and that is, in fact, what she did. My attorney asked, "Do you know whether she had told her husband she was leaving at that point? Did she tell you that?" He answered, "Yes, she had told him. She said that she's not coming home. She actually had told their daughter that she wasn't coming home. She had called her and said, 'Mommy is not going to be home tonight.'" My attorney clarified, "Not coming home tonight, or not coming home, period?" He confirmed the former. My attorney pressed forward. "And what about what she told Demetrius? Do you know? Did she tell him that she was just not coming home tonight, or she's leaving him?" He answered, "Well, she was at work. She may have contacted him at work. I wasn't there, so I wouldn't know. My understanding was he knew that she was going to be leaving him at that point." My attorney asked, "When you and she drive over to their apartment on the Saturday, was it your understanding that she had called ahead to Demetrius to say she was coming to get their son?" He responded, "She may have called ahead, it's possible, but I don't remember." My attorney continued, "And your understanding is that when she got there, had the door sort of blockaded with the couch, then he called the police, then she called you to come and help, so you went upstairs, but by that time the couch had been moved?" He confirmed, "Yes, there's no way that she moved the couch. He would have done it." My attorney responded, "Fair enough. The three of you then, and both children, I take it, were in the apartment?" To which he confirmed, "No, Demetrius wasn't there at that time. He had gone downstairs to meet the police as they arrived." My attorney said, "I see. Okay. So he went downstairs to meet the police, while you and Lien and the children remained in the apartment. You said that it took a while for the police to get there, so you called them again, and they eventually got there. Throughout this time, let me ask you this. How long were you with Demetrius upstairs before he went downstairs?" He replied, "I don't remember him being upstairs actually. It's possible, but I don't remember that. I remember him coming back up with the police." My attorney, unconvinced by his answer, asked him, "At any point in that time, was he uncivil with you?" He asked, "Describe what you mean by uncivil." My attorney clarified, "Was he violent with you? Did he yell or scream? Did he show any anger or any threatening behavior towards you?" To which he answered, "He looked at me in a weird manner, which some people may consider to be uncivil." My attorney replied, "Okay. Did he say anything to you that caused you concern?" He answered, "No." My attorney continued, "So at the end, after the police had intervened and mediated the situation, then Lien decides to stay there. Is that right?" He responded, "Correct. And Demetrius also decided to stay there as well, with the police saying that they weren't separating the children." My attorney asked for clarification. "I take it that is what Lien wanted to do, separate them, take their son out but not their daughter?" He answered defensively, "No, she never wanted to separate those kids, never." My attorney continued, "Did you or she ever in your discussions with the police say that, 'We just want to take them for the afternoon, we'll bring them back'?" He replied, "Yes, but they advised against that." My attorney said, "I see." He immediately responded, "They misunderstood the situation." My attorney continued, "Their impression was that you and Lien wanted to take their son away, right?" He replied, "That was their assumption based on what his phone call to the police was." My attorney asked, "After they'd spoken to both Lien and Demetrius," he was abruptly interrupted by Ali, who argued, "They spoke to him first, so on that day she was on the defensive. They were asking her, 'Why do you want to take their son away? Why do you want to separate the kids?' when in fact that was never the intention." My attorney told him, "I see. I understand from what you've been telling us that from that point Demetrius was very protective of the children and did not let Lien spend any time with them alone, right?" He answered, "I don't know what you mean by protective of the children. Usually when you protect kids, you make sure that the families are with them. My attorney asked him. Let me change the word to possessive. Do you like that word better? He replied defensively. Parental alienation syndrome is what we're talking about here, and this is what was going on in that household with both children. This is what Lien was telling me, her exact description of what was going on in that home. My attorney confirmed. Am I correct, though, that she was telling you that Demetrius did not want her to have the children alone? Yes, he confirmed. Okay, my attorney said. So on the Saturday, June 7th, you told us about a very pleasant afternoon you spent with Lien and with their son, and your understanding was that Demetrius had gone somewhere with their daughter, right? Again he confirmed, yes. My attorney continued, and left their son alone with his wife? To which he confirmed again, yes, that is correct. My attorney continued, and because of that, Lien had to cancel her hair appointment that she had been planning that day, right? He argued, she didn't have any plans for that day. That day was up in the air because she didn't know what was Demetrius's plans were with the kids. She only figured anything out when their daughter told her that they're going out. My attorney asked, did you not tell us earlier that she had plans for some sort of a hair appointment that day? He reasoned, yes, but she had made plans with Sandra, I believe her name was. But a hair appointment is a hair appointment. You don't have to go. With Lien, the priority was always the kids. So when their son was there, she took him and said, okay, let's go. It's a hot day. I'm not going to leave him here. I'm going to take him out the whole day, and I'm going to have a great day with him, and that's what she did. She wasn't disappointed that she had been left with their son and not being able to meet her friend. She didn't care about the hair appointment, manicure, or whatever. It didn't matter. Their son was her priority, and she loved that kid so much. My attorney noted, well, it would seem that you had a nice afternoon that day. Demetrius didn't do anything to stop her from spending the afternoon with their son. He replied, well, we did get a call at 4 from their daughter asking us to come home. When we got home, when she spoke to me afterwards, she said that he was angry as hell. He was mad that he was out the whole day with her. My attorney ignored his comment and continued, I understand, Mr. Nathoo, that you and Lien had a little bit of an issue between the two of you on that Friday. Tell us about it. He explained, well, I wasn't supportive as I should have been during the time of her separation, and I wasn't picking her up as often. I was spending more time at work, and quite frankly, that was 100% my fault. I wasn't spending as much time with her as she wanted. So what I would do is sometimes I had to leave work later, so I would meet her at Carlingwood Mall, where we would meet for a couple of minutes, then I'd take her home. You have to understand that in Ottawa she was alone. She didn't have anybody. So going through something like this was devastating to her. She was upset by the whole thing. It was wearing her out. She was proceeding with the separation. She wasn't upset about the separation itself. She was looking forward to the separation, to having the kids with her 50% of the time. So she wasn't in her mood. She was not in an angry mood. She had 2 job offers. She was an optimist by nature. She was a very happy person. The only thing that wasn't going on right in her life was the fact that I wasn't there, plus the fact that the kids were being isolated from her. So, you see, from that perspective, she was upset. My attorney pressed forward. She was upset at you because you weren't seeing her, but she was also upset about you because she wanted you to send an email to your employers requesting a raise, right? What's that about? He replied, on the Friday between 8 and 9 in the morning, she called me and told me, I want to break it off with you. I've had enough. And she was crying on the phone, and Lien never cries. She's the calmest, most coolest person you've ever seen. She cried that Friday morning, then I cried, and I told her, no, I need you back. And she said, no, I've had enough. And that was the end of the conversation. At that point, she went to work. I was already at work when I received the phone call. Then I went back upstairs and I sent her emails, and I begged her, and I said, "Please take me back." She finally relented, and she said, "Okay, on the condition that you ask your boss for a raise." I basically told her that I need to put her before work, make her my priority over work, since she was obviously going through a difficult time in her life, and that I wasn't there for her as much as I should be. So she said, "Fine, but send a letter to your employer asking for a 15% raise, and I want proof." My attorney asked him what was the point of that, to which he explained, "The point was simply for me to prove to her that I was in fact complying with her." My attorney sought clarification. "So she is complaining that you're not spending enough time with her, that you're spending too much time with work, but she wants you to make her a priority. Spend more time with her, but also tell your employer that you want a 15% raise in salary." He explained, "Her frustration with me was building, and she wanted proof from me." My attorney proceeded, "Throughout all of the time you were with Lien, the time that you knew Lien, she never complained or had any concern about violence on the part of Demetrius against her?" He replied, "That's incorrect." My attorney asked, "It is? Why is it incorrect?" To which he explained, "There was one incident where she was worried about their daughter when she was little, an incident where Demetrius—" My attorney interrupted him and said, "Excuse me, did you hear my question? I was asking you about violence against Lien." He replied, "I'm sorry, violence against her? Oh, I thought you just said violence because that's what I understood. No, she never complained about any violence against her. She would have absolutely talked to me about it. I had actually asked her about it years before." My attorney responded, "I see. Getting back to that business on Friday when she wants to end things with you and she's upset and so forth, what sort of relationship did you and her have in terms of who controlled the situation?" He answered, "I don't think there was anybody who really controlled that situation. We were sort of equal partners in everything. In general, it always appeared superficially as though Lien had control, but I'd say it was more equal. For example, when Demetrius decided to move to Ottawa, that's a decision that he made. She followed him. So who was in control of that situation?" My attorney told him, "I'm talking about between you and her," to which he replied, "I'm giving you an example of where she wasn't in control. With me, she always gave me advice, always gave me suggestions. She always said, 'You know you can be better at what you do. You know you can live better.' She was always a positive person. She always saw light at